Alright, so in my last video, I talked about my adventure in Cambridge at a Harvard Extension School and basically how that turned out. Um, I left it on a little bit of a cliffhanger because I had accepted the Disney College program after that didn't work out. Um, and during the program, like I always knew that was just like a bucket list item that I had always wanted to do for fun, but I was very much torn as to what to do after the program. I was really torn between like two main options that I saw. The first one was to go back to Cambridge and try Harvard Extension School again, but this time, like having learned from my mistakes. And then the other option would have been to study mechanical engineering. So when I say go back to Harvard Extension School, having learned from my mistakes, what I mean by that is that this time, instead of like passively sitting in libraries hoping that organic networking opportunities just somehow materialize out of that, this time I would take a more proactive approach. I would like contact people working on specific projects or post my own projects in the Harvard Crimson, or contact people in specific labs, or get involved in certain clubs, like really taking advantage of the resources there. The reason for studying mechanical engineering, or the reason why I was considering it, is because, I mean, my experience and my skill set is as a software engineer, and I could not really think of any or see any innovative software or machine learning projects going on. Like I was just seeing, okay, another LLM here, another agent to outsource this job there, but nothing like truly innovative or exciting going on. I figured that, instead of staying in like these virtual projects that are really just designed to make money as quickly as possible, I would rather go into something like mechanical engineering, which would let me work on like energy innovations, or I don't know, for example, VTOL transportation, if that's actually feasible, or other innovative real world technologies. I decided in the end not to go with either of these options. Both of these options had their own problems. And so going back to Harvard Extension School, and this time being more proactive, yeah, sure, that would have been better than before, but it would have still not solved the fundamental problem. If I were to go back there, I would need to have people identified beforehand, a project identified beforehand, a specific lab, or whatever identified before I go there, because that needs to happen before I invest like all the hassle of logistics of moving there, all the money for tuition. Harvard Extension School is not cheap. And you see, in the end, it's like I would go there, and what kind of project would I actually be looking for there? I mean, would I be looking for a machine learning project? That would require learning some skills. Would it be some kind of a software project? And this was the fundamental problem that I faced last time, and came clear later on. Starting a project in anything requires having identified some kind of gap or need. Like somebody needed to have really asked you for this and said like, hey, we really need this project. We really need this software tool. Because just building a speculative project is something that I've done, and it's something I failed at before. There needs to be like a specific need identified, and how do you do that? Well, you have to have like real exposure, experience, and like deep knowledge in a domain. Like let's say an attorney who can see like, okay, why don't we use machine learning for processing this, or why don't we build a software tool for this? There has to be that like domain knowledge, like healthcare, finance, climate, whatever, to see what opportunities there are. So it's like I would go there, and without that clarity as to like what kinds of projects am I looking for, what am I looking to start or contribute to, going there without that, I think it would have been largely a repeat of before. Just jumping into the pool, and seeing what happens after, and like investing a lot of resources into that. I didn't think that would be very smart. Like originally, one of the things that really drove me to go there was it's better than, let's say, like you need to make income, so you have a day job, like for me as a software developer, and then working on side projects after that for 4 hours just by yourself. You have to be really motivated to do that. Whereas instead of being in a good environment with people who you could potentially collaborate with, and like in a vibrant environment like Harvard, that's much better. So Harvard Extension School has its place, but there's prerequisites. And then so for mechanical engineering, the problem there was actually the same one. Like the things that I had mentioned, like energy innovations or VTOL transportation or whatever, I hadn't actually like given those any real thought, and they were just like examples of something better than, I don't know, another LLM, but not something that I had actually thought about and said like, hey, is this really what I want to work on? The problem with mechanical engineering is I didn't have any real thesis, and I couldn't answer the fundamental question of, okay, so you spend 3 to 4 years on this degree, tens of thousands of dollars in tuition, and then what do you do? Like every time somebody asked me that question, I would start squirming to like give a good answer, because I hadn't really given it much thought. Fundamentally, it was the same thing as with Harvard Extension School, just lack of clarity and lack of a specific domain. I think that mechanical engineering is a fascinating subject. It's a great subject to learn. But the thing is, that would make sense if I had, let's say, worked on some hardware project and the lack of like deep fundamentals was causing a lot of friction. Then in that case, if it's obvious that I'm constantly working on hardware projects, and I constantly will be, then a mechanical engineering degree would be justified. But without that, it's like too speculative and just too premature. You know, as would any other degree. I mean, maybe mechanical engineering is what I'll need in the future, or maybe biotechnology, or maybe machine learning, or maybe starting a think tank, or whatever, a YouTube media channel. And so I realized that, you know, in order to find the right domains and the right projects for me, I think the best thing to do is just to work on as many projects that seem interesting, try out as many things that seem interesting, and see what sticks and what doesn't. So that could mean, like, for example, emailing the people working at the Open Insulin project, asking like if there's any software needs, volunteering to do that, and if so, driving over there and help working on that, or working on an open source project like NANDA with AI agent infrastructure. You know, emailing the people involved in it, or just, you know, exploring any domain that seems interesting. So in order to do that, I knew I would need what I would really need is remote income. And so 2 weeks before my Disney college program ended, I was lucky enough to get hired as a remote software developer. The great thing is that allows me, is that like, okay, if I do identify a project or something, some reason to go back to Harvard, I can actually do that without losing income, without having to quit my job like last time, or anything else for that matter. If there's a specific person I need to meet, anything else where I need to travel there. And so now with that remote income, and with like the flexibility that comes with it, there's like what specific projects would I work on, what am I gonna do. There's a few that I identified. The first one is that in a lot of African, Asian countries, India, there's a lot of local languages and a lot of diaspora outside of the local region that like they can't communicate with their family back at home because they don't speak that language. And these are usually very local languages that aren't even supported on Google Translate. I mean, I believe there's over 7,000 languages in the world. And so basically what I'm proposing is an app that you call people with it, but then it dubs your voice into the target language, and especially into local languages that aren't well supported elsewhere. And that's something that I personally would need, because I can't communicate with my grandma back in Morocco because she speaks a local dialect of Berber, and there aren't even any resources in English to learn that dialect. I mean, I think the only one resource that exists is this one book written in French. And that's both a massive tech challenge and also a huge scaling challenge. I mean, in terms of technology, The issue is that a lot of the machine learning models for speech-to-speech translation, I mean, translating text is a fairly old problem. There's plenty of like drop-in solutions that you can use, but speech-to-speech is still more of like in a research academic phase. There aren't too many models you can just deploy out of the box. I believe the only one that I'm aware of is Meta's Seamless M4T. I believe that's like the leading one that you can actually, that's open source and you can just use. And then there's also, of course, the scaling challenge. Like just Nigeria alone has over 500 local languages. Like even if you worked all your life on that, I'm not sure you could support all those languages. I mean, since there aren't any data sets for most of these languages, you have to like actually go out into the field and do the recordings and get the data sets, get the audio files of people, enough audio files of people speaking that language. So I think that's like why this hasn't been done before. I mean, it's not profitable. And I mean, I'm looking to do this as like a free and open source project. It's certainly not profitable to do this, and it's certainly like a very hard scaling and tech problem. But still, I think that like this is something that people would genuinely need and that would be actually useful. I think it would help like bring families close, connect families, connect people. I remember like on the Disney College program, my favorite attraction in the theme parks was Spaceship Earth, and this is basically like its call to action, like to help create technology and tools to help people communicate. And then another project is NANDA, which was started at MIT, and it's essentially building the agentic web. So like you have AI agents now becoming fairly commonplace, but there is a need for infrastructure for them to discover other agents, verify that like they can do certain things, communicate with them. Let's say a lawyer agent needs to contact or find or delegate work to a tax specialist sub-agent. One agent can actually search for, discover, and then establish that communication, and maybe even like agree on the prices. So basically, infrastructure for agents to work with each other in an internet. It's sort of like an internet for AI agents. Now, I'm not sure whether this how much need there is for this project, whether this is really useful. I'm not sure about that yet. But for me, like the way I see it is that this is working on this project is probably a great way to gain domain knowledge in this space, which is a thriving, innovative space. It's a great way to build skills in this space, and also a good way to like network and meet people in the agent industry, provided that like I collaborate with people on this project, if I attend some events for this project, reach out to people on Discord, reach out to anybody working on this project. Maybe in the future I may identify the goal here is that in the future I may identify opportunities in this domain in AI agents to actually like solve a need, and then I would know people that I can collaborate with. It's like an organic, natural, correct way to go about starting a startup. Now, the thing about this project though is that like it's not really helping people in the same way as the other one, so I'm not sure how excited I'll be to do this, but I think it's definitely worth trying out. I think it's a fairly solid opportunity. I've also always wanted to get into alternative protein. I think that like factory farming is probably the biggest problem in the world and probably the worst thing that's actually happening. Remember a few weeks ago, I reached out to a researcher in cultivated meat and scheduled a conversation with him. And in that conversation, I asked him like, hey, if you could hire a software engineer for 3 months, like what would you have them work on? He basically said that there aren't like very well-defined like outsourceable tasks for software engineers, although they can contribute. It's just a matter of like reaching out to other researchers, reaching out to maybe engineers. And so Like that's something I'd like to continue is reaching out to people in this space and seeing like what is really needed and is there anything that a software engineer could do. All right, so in the end, given all these options, you have to choose one. The one that I went with is Project NANDA, and more broadly the agentic web, and more broadly the AI startup space. And the reason why is pretty simple. It's like out of all these options, this is the only like unique window of opportunity out of all of them. I mean, apps, activism, anything like that, that can be done basically anytime. But I think that if you have a unique window of opportunity, like the AI revolution right now, like very possibly AI agents right now, then ignoring that when you have the means to contribute, like I mean there's plenty of skills that I would need to learn if I'm gonna pursue this. Like I don't have any experience in, for example, protocol design, which is what a lot of this is, or even in AI agents specifically. I think that there's a lot of very impactful careers that happen because people took advantage of, for example, the early internet boom. Like maybe they wanted to do something else after that, but saw the opportunity, took advantage of it, and then use that capital, use that know-how. This is definitely not a decision that I'm very confident in because I think, as I've said previously, I don't like intrinsically care about the agentic web or even artificial intelligence itself. So there is a very real risk that I'm just going to get bored of this in a month, and you're going to see a video in a month talking about how I'll going to be moving on to actually building something that I really care about. But still, I think that this is a very unique opportunity to gain capital, to gain network, to gain know-how. So I think it would be kind of foolish to like pass up the opportunity. So I'll keep you posted on what I do with Project NANDA, progress there, and see how that all plays out.